Welcome back to the second hour of LoveBabz, LoveTalk on Babz Rawls-Ivy. I'm delighted because I get to have Professor Winston on this morning. And I met Professor Winston hanging out at Harris K over there in the Munson Triangle. That's where I go get my hair colored and cut. She's the captain of my glam squad. And so I'm over there all the time. And so I met Professor Winston over there because she was getting her hair done. Hey, Dr. Keisha Winston, how are you?
I'm fine, Babz. How are you?
Fine. Are you gonna stay off camera?
I am. I am, because even though you just told everybody I got my hair done, I'm not representing the fabulous Miss K right now. I don't want to do that. You know what I mean? Because she is the leader of the glam squad.
Yeah. Listen, I know. She if she's watching now or listening now, she'd be like that. Come here, get your hair colored. I know her. She'll
send me like, why, Keisha? Why aren't you showing your hair?
She'll send me a text, and I'll be like, okay, girl, I'm on my way. So how you doing?
I'm fine. How are you this morning? Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so delighted because when I met you in the salon, we were having a conversation about cannabinoids, which I don't really know cannabinoids. I know pot. That's about it. And I think that's probably just one part of it.
So cannabinoids is the scientific name for all the compounds that come from that cannabis plant.
Okay.
So that's why, scientifically, that's what I studied. So I call it cannabinoids. But same thing, pot, weed, marijuana, the marriage of wine, the chief.
Mary Jane.
Yes, Mary Jane, all those names.
So tell me, Dr. Winston, how did you get involved? Like, how did you fall into studying about the cannabis?
Okay, I would just like to say, just to give a disclaimer that yes, I am Jamaican. My father's a Rasta, but I fell into this very innocently. Okay, this was not a planned pre-birth.
Irie.
Yeah. So I went to Northeastern University in Boston, and my major there was behavioral neuroscience. And so when I left there, I went to grad school. My goal was to just do, my goal was to go to medical school. But when I got to my fourth chemistry, I realized that may not be the avenue for me. So I changed my trajectory and said I'll go and get a doctorate instead. When I was applying to graduate school, I was introduced to the field of cannabinoids by what turned out to be one of my advisors. His name is Dr. Macrianis. He runs his own pharmaceutical company called the Center for Drug Discovery, where he makes new synthetic cannabinoid compounds. His goal is to get them approved for medicinal use. So that's what I studied in grad school, the medicinal benefits of novel cannabinoid agents.
So are we doing it right? Like, are we right to be looking at this medicinally, and what are some of the highlights of using it medicinally? Like, what are some of the things? Can it cure stuff? Can it alleviate stuff?
It definitely can alleviate stuff. I'm not gonna say it can cure anything. I don't want anybody to take that and run with it. So allow me, Babz, to jump on my soapbox really quickly.
Get on it, girl.
The cannabinoid, the class of compounds called cannabinoids, are very strong medicinal agents in certain areas. So for example, the number one thing we use now in this country for pain relief are those opioid drugs. And now, all of a sudden it's like opioid crisis. Well, I don't think it's really just all of a sudden. I think it has been developing over the past 15 years, where doctors are throwing these opioids at people like Skittles. And here we have another class of compounds called the cannabinoids, all right, that have a less deleterious effect on the body, that have the same and sometimes more of a medicinal value. And yes, it's a little bit more natural in terms of not having those negative effects. And so these cannabinoids are good pain relievers. I think that we should really be looking at them to replace those opioids, so to speak, all right, because they do have really significant analgesic properties without having those bad effects. So for example, if you are on an opiate medication for a long period of time, it could cause serious side effects such as respiratory depression. What does that mean? That means, I don't know, your chest might cave in, just little things like that. Do you know what I mean? Where cannabinoids, we've shown this in the research, do not have those significant deleterious effects if they are taken in the appropriate route of administration. So not smoking, but orally, topically, those type of things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because when I had hip replacement surgery about 2 years ago, both hips, 6 months apart. And leading up to that, I was in so much pain because it was bone on bone. I was put on opioids, and I absolutely hated them.
Yeah.
I mean, I just absolutely hated them. So I never really took the dosage in the way that it was prescribed for me, because I just couldn't stand it. So I took it just enough to sort of get me past the pain so I could sleep. And then after that, I wouldn't take it during the day because I just didn't like the feeling of it. And then once I had the surgeries, I just got off of them, and they were so surprised that I just got off of them without any residual
effects
and no craving or whatever for them. And I was like, because I don't like this stuff. So
you're extremely, extremely addictive compounds.
Yes.
That's what the doctor doesn't tell you when he writes the script. He's like, here, go ahead and take it. But he's not telling you there's a large possibility that you may become addicted to this drug. That's that's really the majority of the way people get addicted to opioids is if they start with prescriptions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Car accidents or something like that. It starts with that pain. It's really just trying to get relief from the pain. And the opiates are good at that, but they just have very bad side effects.
Yeah. I mean, I was constipated so much that I had to take 2 constipation medicines to combat it. And I was like,
see,
it's happening here.
It starts a sick cycle of now you have to take drugs to deal with the side effects of the drug.
Yes.
It's like a domino effect.
It's like, I couldn't wait to get off those things. And so they wanted to get me into a study. Like, how did I just give these up so readily? And I was like, first of all, I don't have an addictive personality. Second of all, I just couldn't stand it. Like I just begrudged them at every turn. I was like, oh, I hate this. I hate this feeling. So talk to me about, can people be addicted to cannabis?
Yes. People can be addicted to cannabis. I also believe, though, that the addiction is tied into their lifestyle as well. You know what I mean? So separately from being heavily addicted to opioids, I think your addiction to cannabis comes from, yes, you can be addicted to it, but also people envelope it into their lifestyle. You know what I mean? So people wake up, and if they're using recreationally, you have people that use it all day, every day.
Okay.
So psychologically now you're putting yourself in the predicament where psychologically you're thinking, oh, well, I can't do this until I engage in my cannabis. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I can't do this until I smoke. Oh, no, it's better when I smoke, or it's better when I have the cannabinoids. So I think that wraps up the addiction, makes it a little bit more serious and a little bit more stronger. As well, because we do, we have to think about, and I'm always like, cannabis, cannabinoids, the gift and the curse. The gift are the medicinal benefits that we can get from these drugs, but the curse is we need to think about, how are we as a society, as a community, as medical health professionals, how are we rolling out now this drug that's now become approved almost nationwide? You know what I mean? Like, how are we presenting it to the youth? I think that's where the curse comes in, because now, see, before now legalization, recreationally, weed was something that young people use. They like it. It's natural. We can do it. It grows from the earth. You know what I mean? So now that it's illegal, it's a free for all. And that's where we
Yes.
do, yeah, that's the cursed part for me. That's where we need to appropriately roll this out so that kids whose brains are still growing aren't sitting there, getting stoned out of their minds and affecting who they will become because their brains are still growing.
Mm.
Do you see what I'm saying? So I think,
Yes.
I'm happy that it is being approved for medicinal purposes and being, that stigma is being taken away from it. But also, I think we really need to be now more cognizant about how we are presenting this to the younger population so that they can be responsible users of it and not just free for all. Oh, it's legal now. Yay. I mean, listen, I've had students come to my class high, like, yeah, I just smoked some pot. Like they feel comfortable enough to tell me, their professor, sorry, professor, I'm out of it. I just smoked. Like, what?
Wow.
So yeah, yeah. So, and I heard you earlier talking about the impact of COVID on, our educational system. I'm right there with you, Babz. Really what happened is it stopped for 2 years. Education stopped for
It
the
did.
2 years. Yeah.
And
And that's where kids stopped. They are there because now my freshmen are really seventh graders.
yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
And
So
I think we won't know the fallout and the repercussions of the COVID effect on students for a while. I mean, I think we're starting to see the tip of it, but I think I mean, I think 10 years out, we're going to see how this really affected
yeah,
kids.
we won't know till the first batch graduates from college. And then unfortunately, we're going to have to learn the hard way.
Yeah. Yeah. So talk to me about the uses, because I see a lot of I'm fascinated by how people swear by topical stuff like ointments on their skin. Like if you have arthritis, it's good for arthritis. If you have some other kind of thing, and how do people learn what is in their best interest?
Well, with this class of compounds, people typically learn by just doing. But now that we have it now somewhat regulated in terms of dispensaries, now people can go and they can see what it is that they're using. Because when you go to a dispensary and you purchase a product, you have detailed information on the actual product. This is what's in there. These are the percentages of what's in there. So now you know what you're getting, as opposed to just trusting the person you're getting it for. Like, oh, I made this in my kitchen. Trust it. You know what I mean? And yes, the topical things do work for most people. They help to alleviate the pain, alleviate spasticity, tightness in your muscles and joints and things of that nature. They do really work well for some people.
Wow.
And
And
it's
so
the levels of cannabinoids. See, there are hundreds of cannabinoids, but we've only really learned about, maybe 80, 90, so to speak. But we know that number one cannabinoid that we know about is delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol, or delta-9 THC. That's the most psychoactive. That's what gives people that high. But we also have other cannabinoids like that CBD, cannabidiol. All right, that gives us that medicinal value.
And it doesn't make us high.
No, it does not make us high. So seriously, the goal really with these compounds is medicinal compounds is to take out that psychoactive effect, but keep that medicinal value, keep that CBD effect going. Because if you're trying to get alleviation from your glaucoma, my 93-year-old grandmother, she probably doesn't want to be high. She probably just she probably just wants to alleviate the glaucoma pressure.
Okay.
And
I see.
here's what people don't understand is that we have our own naturally occurring cannabinoid system in our brains, in our bodies.
Oh.
Yes. We have endogenous cannabinoid system. That's how these drugs are able to work with us so well. And the receptors for these cannabinoids, both endogenous and exogenous, are all over our brains, our bodies, all over our brains, all over our immune systems, all over our bodies, in the reproductive system, in your digestive system, everywhere in your central nervous systems and your immune systems. These receptors for these compounds are everywhere. And so these naturally occurring cannabinoids that we have in our bodies, two main ones that are called anandamide and 2-AG, 2-arachidionyl glycerol. So that's a long name. So it's called 2-AG. They have significant functions. So for example, if we have some kind of trauma happen in our brains, these endogenous cannabinoids are like first responders. They do have neuroprotective effects in our brains. So these are things that people don't know, but we have to look at. We have to study, because this is such potential for medicinal value without having those deleterious effects like the opioid drugs do.
So you could use this to treat some of that mental health trauma that people had, like bipolar and anxiety. And
anxiety, definitely, yes. Could use it to treat
without
anxiety.
being high.
Yes, without being high. So take out that psychoactive effect, and then we keep that medicinal value. That's the goal, really. Yeah.
Wow.
And these drugs are also useful in a lot of neurological and immune system illnesses. So for example, I have multiple sclerosis.
Oh.
These drugs are really valuable in symptom treatment for multiple sclerosis as well. Things like multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's, ALS,
lupus.
Yep, lupus as well. Yeah.
So are there factions of scientists working on these kinds of hopeful discoveries in terms of usage and for medicine, and maybe alleviating some of the symptoms that come along with some of these diseases and illnesses?
Absolutely. I was one of those scientists when I was in grad school. But yeah, absolutely. They are scientists that are working on this every day. Cannabinoid research.
And so why do you think it gets such a, well, first of all, let me ask you this, Dr. Winston. Were you surprised at how swiftly they allowed the acceptance of marijuana and pot to be sold in dispensary? At first, it was just you could only get it medicinally, but now you could just walk up to dispensaries and just get what you like.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated by that because it was so heavily policed for so long, and people went to jail for long periods of time.
Yeah.
For
and
small amounts of pot, and still in there. And still trying to figure out how to get them out, right? So
just let them out. I think you should just let them out. Like, seriously, my tax dollars are being wasted on those people that are in there for 20 years because of those mandatory minimums, because they had, a gram of weed. You just took somebody's whole life away.
Yes.
For something that's now legal.
And, in some states, they are folks who have been locked up have first opportunity or first rights to have a dispensary or have the ability to sell it legally.
They had that here.
Yeah.
I
don't know how successful it's been. I don't know.
I don't know either. But your initial question was, am I surprised by how quickly?
Yes.
Well, let me tell you, Babz, when I started this research, when I started grad school back in whatever, because I'm young, even within the scientific community, it was kind of a little taboo. So I would go to these conferences and I would be presenting on my research or my lab's research, and people would be like, really? Cannabinoids, really? You know what I mean? So I am floored at how now it's just like, boom, all of a sudden, widespread and so popular. And now we have universities that are creating cannabis cultivation programs. University of New Haven now has like this whole cannabis certification program. I'm like, oh, really? Like, I'm right here. Hello.
So people can grow their own
People can learn how to grow their own and how to, grow it well and properly and all that good stuff.
Wow.
Yeah,
I
learn
just find
about the
that all
plant.
fascinating.
I think it's so interesting that, and that just shows you how America is, that they went from this is a horrible, horrible situation to now this is great, almost overnight.
And it's not lost on me that we are not the ones, people of color are not the ones benefiting wholly from these turn of events.
We're not. No, we're
Mm.
not. I mean, I was a cannabinoid researcher. I don't seem to be benefiting Babz, but I'm I'm happy that the information is out there now, though, that this is not such a bad class of compounds, and that there is something to go up against those opioid drugs.
And do you find that doctors are starting to get some awareness and some education about how to prescribe these kinds of these cannabinoids as opposed to opioids? Because opioids seems to be the first line of defense.
First thing they go to, they're going to put you on some morphine, right? Or the Percocets or the Percodans or the Oxys, and I do think so. So I recently gave a talk to two talks at Yale, one to the faculty fellows forum in addiction medicine, and the other to the neuroimmunology fellows and faculty. And yeah, from just those talks, I see with the questions that I receive from the MDs, I see that they are taking it seriously, that they are trying to figure out how is the proper way now they can suggest and prescribe in these kind of compounds to their patients. Because those are most of the questions that I got. Like, how do you think we should start it out? How do we know if an individual can tolerate it? Those type of questions. Those were the questions I was getting.
Wow. And so when you hear those kinds of questions, that means they are really thinking about this as a real option.
Yes. And I'm excited about that because you should not be on opioids for more than maybe 6 months. There you have people who have been on opioids for years. That's breaking your body down. Stop it.
I don't know how they could, I swear to God.
Yeah. Those drugs are heavy, man.
What?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. I could not walk around all day feeling like that. Like that was not a good feeling. Oh my God.
No,
If I
because
could
it
have,
definitely messes with your mind. I mean, it definitely takes over your central nervous system. You feel it when you're on one of those drugs.
yes, you do. You do. I mean, you do. And Percocets and Oxycontin has been around for a very long time. I remember having those drugs for when I had my wisdom teeth pulled and, all that kind of stuff. I never got addicted.
They're quick too to just write that script and give a significant milligram dosage. And I'm just like, no, because, I think that MDs need to think about, sometimes they just write the script, but they're not thinking about the individual. Some people are genetically predisposed to addiction.
Yeah.
You might not want to give them the opiate script. Yeah.
That's interesting because I went to a whole pain management facility to talk about the level of pain that I was experiencing. And I guess that was part of if they're going to write me opioids, I had to go and, and they were like, oh, if you do this, you can't have alcohol and you can't whatever. And I was like, okay, fine. But, I just found it very interesting, the whole pain management component. But no one talked to me about cannabinoids or anything like that.
See, and that's what needs to change, because we need to be able to present people with another option.
Yeah, because there's people who just want the pain to be alleviated and not be high.
Exactly. And really with the opioids, with those oxys and those Percocets, Percodans, no matter what, you do feel a little high. You know what I mean? Some people don't, but usually if you're just the average person and you've never really taken those drugs, that they're going to hit you heavy. You know what I mean? As opposed to, say, a cannabinoid drug that probably won't hit you as heavy. because if we take out that psychoactive effect, you're really just getting the medicinal value. If anything, you might feel very relaxed in your body, but that's what you want because you want the pain to go away.
Mm.
So,
And so, where do you see medicine going in regards to cannabinoids? Like how easy do you want it to be a part of society? Like what, I mean, we can almost buy stuff over the counter.
yeah, right. Listen, I went into my local gas station and you can buy products there. I don't know if I want it to be that accessible. You know what I mean? If we are really thinking about, like I said, rolling it out for the youth, I do want it to be like, I want the class of compounds to be respected as a medicinal agent. And I want it to be treated as such. I don't want it to be a free-for-all. I don't currently have children, I have godchildren, but I don't want like my 10-year-old godchild being able to go to the gas station and purchase, you know, some marijuana. I
So
think it's
how do we have conversations with young people about, I mean, I guess it's the same conversation you would have with young people about alcohol use or any other kind of drug use. How do you have these conversations? Because I just get the sense, Dr. Winston, and I could be really wrong, but I see kids high all the time. Like I smell it. Like they
yeah,
walk
you smell
by
it
and it's
walking
like
down the street.
it's a cloud. I
Yeah,
pull up to cars and it's so strong it gets into my car. Like I got it in my car. Like what, like how do we solve for X in this whole who gets to use it? When do people get to use it? Do I want my school bus driver on it, right, during the business
no,
hours? Do I
no.
want, the nurse who is administering care to me to be on something? Like where are we going with it? How do we, I mean, we've opened the gate. How do we sort of close the gate, or do we ever close the gate now?
Well, now I think that we're a little past closing the gate because I think that we open the floodgates and just, you know what I mean? I think now we need to try to scale back and have some order to the chaos. You know, I think that people got really excited at first and I was like, yes, finally, because they wanted this for so long. But now I really think we need to start that conversation in schools. We need to educate young people on the real benefits and the real negatives, the positives and the negatives of these drugs. And more importantly, we need to educate them on route of administration, because I think that's one of the big downfalls is that the majority of young people, the way in which they ingest their cannabis, their marijuana is through smoking.
Yeah.
And so because of that, what we're going to see moving forward are more cardiac issues, more, lung issues, things related to that situation. And so we really need to be thinking about how are we going to properly educate now people going forward on those things so that they can make more informed decisions about their use of cannabinoids.
Mm-hmm. And so do you think that Dr. Winston, people who are like, doing this at work, maybe not the stuff that gets you high, but the other stuff. I mean, do you think we go back to policing people with, when and where they can use it? And
I think that if you're using a CBD agent, that you're okay. I don't think that it's affecting your psyche where you cannot think at work. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean out there, people listening, that you double, triple up. That's not what I said. Maintain your regular dose. Okay. So don't do the mile thing because I gave you an inch. But I do think that if people are engaging in the psychoactive component, that they should do that like they drink. You know what I mean?
Like you wouldn't drink on your job, right?
Exactly.
Like you would bring a cocktail to your desk.
Exactly. You're not going to drink a fifth before you go into work. You should not, you know what I mean? Save it for your wind down before you go to sleep at night. Like just be realistic about it, because listen, when you are when you are high with the psychoactive component, that THC, no, you're not thinking as clearly as you would if you weren't. Just let's be honest, you know? And so I think they should approach it the way that, like alcohol, even though I have my own issues with the way we approach alcohol in this country too, because it's one of the most horrible drugs, but we have whole stores devoted to it.
We do.
Listen, those alcohol commercials, I tell my students, I'd be like, listen, you see those Bacardi commercials? I want to be on the boat on the beach too.
Yeah.
Yes, they are enticing.
That's the point.
If we can
Although I've not seen branded marijuana cannabinoid.
Yeah, not yet. Not yet. I'm hoping we don't get there. I'm hoping that we really just try to maximize the medicinal. Listen, if we really, America does this properly and really just take it for the medicinal value of it, we could be replacing a deleterious class of compounds called those opioids that are causing our society a whole lot of problems right now.
Yeah.
That's the way people need to think about it, I think.
I don't know. I'm not sure America will do what's right.
No, probably not.
I know there's somebody chomping at the bit, some company that is chomping at the bit to put out an ad saying this particular brand or product or whatever.
I feel like Babz, I feel like it's already in process, in progress.
Yeah.
I'm
think so.
Sure.
Because I, you know, I'm way older than you, Professor Winston, but when I was a kid, I remember cigarette commercials.
Oh, yeah. I remember those cigarette commercials. Do you remember when you would get on the plane and people would just light
and we'll be smoking?
Yes, yes. Remember the smoking section in restaurants? I mean, people told me, I didn't experience that myself because I'm young, but I'm just saying.
No, I remember smoking sections in restaurants and oh my God.
So now I feel like, you know, history repeats itself, but in different ways. Now I'm thinking, are we going to have that now in the future? But now with marijuana, are people going to be like hitting their, you know, their pipes and their pens in the restaurant? Can I sit in the smoking section?
Wow.
I hope that'd be a little too much.
It would be a lot. It would be a lot.
Be a little too much.
Well, I so appreciate this conversation. You have shed some light on some things for me. So now now I feel like I could confidently go and look at some medicinal things.
Yes. You could do. They have edibles. They have the creams. They have topicals, tinctures, everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do a little shopping. I mean, I've tried some things. I've tried some edibles because there's a whole farm somewhere that I bought stuff from, which I was quite pleased. And I was like, oh, okay, this is what this is like. And a friend of mine sent me when I was having when I was initially having joint pain, they sent me some topical cream stuff to use. And I was like, all right.
Yeah,
so I was like, okay, this is interesting.
Listen, if you use it properly, it works for what you're using it for. It's a good medicinal agent. We take out that psychoactivity. This is a good medicinal drug.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Professor Keisha Winston. I want you to come back because I know there's more to talk about.
I would love to come back. This has been so much fun.
I want you to come back and talk more about this because I think one show is just not enough. I think, and I know people are going to call me and ask about this. So I want to have another show. So
let's do a call-in show.
Yes, let's do it. Let's do it. So, all right, my dear.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, everybody. This is Professor Keisha Winston at University of New Haven. And I really enjoyed this. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, Harry Drones, thank you very much. I hope you learned a thing or two. I will see you soon, Dr. Winston.
Yeah, I'll see you. See you at the hair salon.
We'll Wheels keep spinning. Wheels keep spinning to the morning light. Wheels keep spinning. Wheels keep spinning. Wheels keep spinning to the morning light. Wheels